Namaskar. Welcome to Atharva Forum. Subscribe to Atharva Forum and listen to various aspects of Indian culture, civilization, and history. Let us begin our talk today by paying our obeisance to the Great Goddess. In Bengal, Durga Puja is a grand people's festival. Today, it has also become a prominent feature, especially within the diaspora constituted by the Hindu Bengali speaking community. In recent decades, however, Durga Puja has been subjected to unprecedented changes and interferences, often marked by use of open force and the impress of covert ideologies antithetical to our Hindu tradition. Political, religious, pseudo-secular, and neo-liberal interventions seem to be trying to strip an age-old Hindu festival of all its ancient heritage and traditional socio-cultural and religious significance and convert it into some sort of an annual art carnival bereft of living religious faith and spiritual resplendence. Under these circumstances, that we will have to understand the history of the power and glory associated with this grand puja, and as well as that of the religious, social, political, and perhaps economic dimensions of this festival. This understanding will serve as a civilizational documentation of the greatest festival of the Bengali speaking Hindu community the worldwide, and also showcase the intent of the original tradition before a larger popular audience. Now, it needs to be noted first that Durga Puja in our nation has a history spanning over a millennium. And while it no doubt gained its modern shape during the British Raj, the festival also contributed immensely to our freedom struggle. Even today, the longing, revelry, and rivalry associated with the Great Goddess of Bengal remain unmatched. Recently, UNESCO has acknowledged Kolkata's Durga Puja to be a part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It is crucial that we remember, reinscribe, and reassert our sense of identity as Indians, as Hindus, as Bengalis, which is under the threat of being erased in this era of globalization and melting cultural boundaries. In the historicity and the evolution of this tradition of Durga festival in the Greater Bengal region. While writings on Durga Puja are to be found in the popular domain, most of this do not contribute academically to any kind of critical study. There is a real lack of the systemic documentation of the antiquity of the festival, of the provision of insights into the story of its natural evolution, and serious discussion about its many social and religious ramifications. The Durga Puja that we celebrate today, that we see and celebrate today, is definitely not a byproduct of our colonial interactions. Its history is much older, more pristine. The current form of the festival began perhaps in the 13th or 14th centuries, if not earlier. Digests on Durga Pujas, smriti-nivandhas, were written regularly during the medieval period, at least since the 11th-12th centuries. One of the earliest references is to a Smritikara named Valaka, who is mentioned by Bhavadeva Bhatta, who lived probably sometime between 800 CE and 1100 CE, and also by Jimutavahana, who lived between 1050 and 1150 CE. Jimutavahana's treatise on Durga Puja, which is entitled Kalaviveka, is available in print even today, but Valaka's text seems to have been lost to time. Next in chronology comes Shulapani's Durgotsava Viveka, Vasanta Viveka, and Durgotsava Prayoga. These were perhaps composed during the 12th and 13th centuries. However, the most elaborate digest was composed by Vidyapati. Vidyapati was the court poet of the Mithila royals. Vidyapati's Durga Bhakti Tarangini, written anytime in the mid-15th century, is certainly the magnum opus in the pre-Raghunandana era. Vidyapati makes a mention of receiving a royal command from Mithiladhishwara Rupnarayana Maharajadhiraja Dhirsimhadeva. He says, Mithiladhishwara Rupnarayana Maharajadhiraja Dhirsimhadevanugaya. So, to pen down his elaborate digest. Apart from this, Smarta Raghunandana Bhattacharya, who belonged to the mid-16th or early 17th century period, is credited with the authorship of two of the most popular ritual digests, Durgotsava Tattva and Durga Puja Tattva, which direct the celebration surrounding the Great Goddess's annual autumnal festival even today. Modern day Durga Puja manuals that are available in print, although they advertise themselves as following the guidelines laid down in either the Kalika Purana or the Devi Purana or the Brihanandikeshwar Purana, all appear to be based on Raghunandana's digests. Though the original text of Brihanandikeshwara Purana seems to be no longer extant, the Puja manual claiming to have been derived from this Purana is not only the most elaborate but perhaps the most popular. Incidentally, the Durga Puja at the Sri Ramakrishna Math in Belur Math, which was started by Swami Vivekananda in 1901, is held as per the ritual directions of the Brihanandikeshwara Purana Puja manual following upon Raghunandana's instructive digest. However, it is the digest of Vidyapati of Mithila that calls for the most complex and elaborate arrangements and performance of rituals. There can be little doubt it was written exclusively for the Mithila royals. References to Durga Puja also abound in literary works. Vishnu Yamala, a Tantra digest which belongs to the 15th century, tells us that Durga Puja happens in every house. It uses the Bengali words, Sanskrit words, grihe grihe, that is house to house. Vrindavana Das Thakur, very famous Vaishnava poet from Bengal, very famous Vaishnava icon, Vrindavana Das Thakura, in his Chaitanya Bhagavata, which was written sometime again in the mid-16th century, he informs us, Mridanga Mandira Shankho Achishab Ghare Ghare, Durgotshab Tore, Durgotshab Kale, Bhaddo Bajabat Tore. Mridanga Mandira Shankho Ache Shab Ghare, Durgotshab Kale, Bhaddo Bajabat Tore. So, no doubt, by the time of Bengal's own poet Krittivasa Ojha, Sri Rama had to perform Akal Bodhana of the Mahamaya, that is the great goddess, to receive her blessings in order to vanquish the evil, that is Ravana, and establish Dharma, rule of law. So by the time of Krittivasa, which is roughly 1381 CE to 1461 CE, Sharadiya Durga Puja, that is the annual autumnal celebrations of the Great Goddess, had already become an integral part of the socio-cultural, economic and political milieu of the Greater Bengal region, thereby becoming a part of the indispensable civilizational narrative, so to say. Otherwise, for Krittivasa, he had very little reason to deviate from the original Valmiki Ramayana, where Sri Rama actually worships the sun god Bhagavan Surya Deva and chants Aditya Hridayam to propitiate him at the behest of sage Agastya in order to gain the necessary strength and the ability to defeat Ravana. How did Durga Puja begin in the Greater Bengal region? With the coming of Islam into India and North India falling to Islamic invasion rapidly, the indigenous, that is the Hindu kings of India, North India especially, were quick to lose their sovereignty. When you are no longer a sovereign, you seize the right to perform and organize grand Vaidika yajnas of the Ashwamedha type. The new situation, with its own distinctively different socio-political undercurrents, may conceivably have required that local kings needed to have their own new festivals, and hence perhaps began the grand narrative of the annual autumnal homecoming of the great goddess. Vidyapati's Durga Bhakti Tarangini certainly indicates this. Significantly enough, Puranas too eulogize Durga Puja as Kalau Ashwamedha, the Ashwamedha Yajna of the Kali Yuga. Histories and oral sources record that the first Durga Pujas in Bengal were organized by affluent noblemen and their kinsmen. The Mithila royals, they had certainly been performing Durga Puja since the time of Vidyapati. However, there is no trace of that ancient puja left today. Of the other royal dynasties which held Durga Pujas of their own, mention may be made of the kings of Vishnupur and Koch Bihar. Both these pujas of Devi Mrinmayi and Bado Devi, respectively, one in Vishnupur and the other in Kuch Bihar, are still continuing, though somewhat bereft of their past grandeur. The name of one Kamsa Narayana, the Raja of Tahirpur, in the Rajshahi district now in Bangladesh, may also be mentioned. This Raja is said to have risen to prominence during the reign of the Mughal Emperor Akbar, as he is said to have assisted Akbar's revenue officer Todarmal to survey the Bengal region, and it is said that with the largesse he received from the Mughal court, he performed a grand Durga Puja spending about 9 lakh sikkas, which was hitherto unheard of amount of money. Kamsa Narayana's descendants are still continuing with their ancestral puja with great devotion in Kolkata. Soon afterwards, Jagat Narayan, the Raja of Bhaduria, conducted his own Vasanti Durga Puja, reportedly spending about 10 lakhs of sikkas. The names of others who are cited next are largely from the South Bengal region. Lakshmikanta Majumdar, the founder of the Shabana Roy Chowdhury family, and Bhavananda Majumdar, who was the founder of the Nadia Raj. Lakshmikanta's puja still continues with piety and devotion at Bodisha in South Kolkata, while Bhavananda's descendants continued the worship at Krishnanagar amidst reminiscences of earlier royal splendor. Both of these pujas have crossed the 4th century mark. It is generally held too that the annual worship hosted by the Nadia royals gained great significance during the reign of Maharaja Krishnachandra Rai, who lived between 1710 and 1783, and who is credited with having organized one of the grandest Durgotsavas of all times. It is important to note that the Bengali Hindu landlords and prominent fortune holders could have found it difficult and imprudent to flaunt their wealth and conduct large-scale festivities during the Sultanic and Mughal periods, as well as during the Nawabi rule. However, with the British victory at the Battle of Plassey in 1757, such strategic deferments on the part of the Hindu aristocracy quickly became a thing of the past. Then, with the ascendancy of Kolkata as the capital of British India, the later names, all largely from the Kolkata region, include those of Govindaram Mitra, Maharaja Navakrishna Dev, and Darpanarayan Thakur. These individuals are still remembered as some of the more famous continuers of the Durga Puja tradition in the colonial times during the 18th century. Nevertheless, one cannot deny that Baro Yari, which means local community organized Durga Pujas, had existed as part and parcel of Hindu social life, especially in rural areas, for a much longer time than we generally acknowledge. Much before the first official Barwari Puja took off, villages in Bengal had been hosting the annual autumnal celebration of the Great Goddess in their nondescript Chandi Mandap, which is essentially the local temple courtyard in the village, with perhaps little or no help from the local landlord. While one cannot deny that the emergence of a new Bengali elite and the rise of the Bhadralok community during the British period, coupled with the colonial experience, did add some sort of a different and at times even alienating grandeur to the Durga festival, the independence movement certainly did a lot to arouse the spirits of a depressed people by invoking the Divine Mother, with Bankim Chandra famously addressing the Desha Matrika, the motherland, as Twam hi Durga Dashapraharana Dharini, Tomari Pratima Gori Mandire Mandire, Subhash Chandra Bose, and other prominent leaders of the national struggle for emancipation quickly involved themselves actively in various Durga Puja organizing committees in Kolkata and elsewhere. The long lost tradition of Virashtami and Shastra Puja was revived in almost every Sarvajanin festival, for a whole community of sleeping warriors had to be wakened up in the service of the great goddess. In the post-independence period, the political agenda of certain interested forces has attempted to impose a secularist branding on Durga Puja. In many cases, noticeable particularly recently, Durga Puja is being highlighted as Sharadotsha, or the festival in the month of Sharad or autumn, with a religious and spiritually revitalizing event being denuded of its original charge of religious significance. The Durga Puja is gradually being opened up to the onslaught of certain pseudo-secularist ideologies that are in denial of the values of the Sanatan Hindu tradition. So it is under these circumstances that we need to attempt to make a correction. It is imperative today to investigate, to document, to reassess, to examine, and to understand and to celebrate the unprecedented past achievements, the power and the glory, the nostalgia as equally as the intent of the original traditions associated with Durga Puja, the most important public event in Bengal for centuries altogether. We looked at the historiography of the evolution of Durga Puja. Now we will go into the various aspects of Durga Puja. The first thing that we need to understand that in Bengal, only the autumnal worship of the great goddess, that is the Sharadiya Durga Puja, has been traditionally ascribed as a Maha Puja. A Maha Puja has four parts, which is Pujanam, Snapanam. Snapanam here means Maha Snan, Balidanam, and Homa, that is the fire worship or Havan. So, this is what the Shastra says. So, because in Durga Puja we have all these four parts, we do the puja of the goddess, we conduct Maha Snan of the goddess on all the 3 days main of the puja, we perform Validanam and we do the Havan. This is why Durga Puja is called a Maha Puja, and it is also celebrated as Kalau Ashwamedha or Ashwamedha Yajna of Kali Yuga. So, in Devi Purana actually tells us that Ashwameva Mapnoti Bhaktina Asura Sattama Mahanavamyam Pujayam Sarvakama Pradayika. That is, if you worship goddess with bhakti, then you get same fruits as you would obtain out of performing an Ashwamedha ritual. And in this Bengal, that is in the Greater Bengal region, comprising of undivided Bengal, Mithila, Bihar, and also in the Kamrup, Assam region, goddess is being worshipped since time immemorial. The name Durga, if you read Markandeya Purana, we come to know that she killed an Asura whose name was Durg. So, after she killed Durg Asur, she became famous as Durga. Tatraiva cha vadishyami Durgam Akhyam Mahasuram Durga Devi iti Vikyatam Tanme Nama Bhavishyati. So that's how Devi got the name Durga. When we read Mahabharata, we also get to know that before the great war at Kurukshetra, at the advice of Sri Krishna, Sabyasachi Arjuna goes to perform a worship of the great goddess, and he chants Namaste Siddha Senani Arye Mandara Vasini Kumari Kali Kapali Kapile Krishna Pingale Swahakara Swadha Chaiva Kalakashta Saraswati Savitri Veda Matacha Tatha Vedanta Uchyate Ityadi. So, if you look at this, then in the Bengal region, we can, easily come to this, perhaps to this conclusion, and scholars should agree, perhaps, that from the time Maharshi Markandeya's, in Markandeya Purana, chapters 81 to 93, these 13 chapters form what is called Saptasati Devi Mahatmyam, and in Bengal this is popularly known as Sri Sri Chandi. So from this time itself, Devi Durga has become Vanga Hridaya Adhishtatri. She has become the great goddess of the Bengal region, Vangeshwari. Apart from Markandeya Purana, Matsya Purana, Devi Purana, Devi Bhagavat, Kalika Purana, Bhavishya Purana, and the now, what we do not find, it's Brihanandikeshwar Purana. In these Puranas, we find the mention of Devi Durga, her ritual worship has been mentioned very elaborately. So by the time of the Pala and Sena dynasty in Bengal, Skanda Mahasena, that is Kartikeya, was the main god of war, but slowly you will find that goddess Durga takes up the position of Kartikeya. Dashapraharana Dharini, Mahisasura Mardhini, goddess Durga takes up this position that was previously occupied by Kartikeya. In the tradition of Smritikaras, great Pandit, whose name was Ramtoshan Vidyaratna, he was sponsored by a zamindar from the suburbs of North Kolkata, Khardaha. His name was Pranakrishna Vishwas, and sometime in the 19th century, he wrote a treatise called Pranatoshini Tantra. Pranakrishna Vishwas and Ramtoshan Vidyaratna. So this name came Pranatoshini Tantra. So in that Pranatoshini Tantra, you have an elaborate discussion on Durga Puja and how to perform Durga Puja. If we go through the various rituals and the Smriti Shastras on Durga Puja, then we easily understand that this tradition is at least 800 to 1000 years old, and much of these rituals were written for royalty. The tradition of Durga Puja, the celebration of goddess Durga, is at least 800 to 1000 years old in Bengal region. It is very interesting that in Kalika Purana we find the reference to Sri Rama's worshipping of goddess Durga. Perhaps it is this story of Kalika Purana that our poet Krittivasa borrows, and in Kalika Purana we find this hymn, Aim Ravanasya Vadarthaya Ramasya Anugrahaya Cha Akale Brahmana Bodha Devastvai Kritahapura Ityadi. The Shastra says that in Treta Yuga, Sri Ramachandra, in order to defeat Ravana, in order to vanquish Ravana, had to worship Devi Durga, because without the Kripa Kataksha of Mahashakti, it was difficult even for Sri Rama to kill or defeat Ravana. But when the great war was going on in Lanka, it was the month of Ashwin, and in the month of Ashwina, Surya Deva was in his Dakshinayana Parikrama. Now, when it is Dakshinayana Parikrama, we all know that it is night time in the Devaloka, and when it is night time in the Devaloka, the Devatas are definitely in their sleep, they are in their Nidra. So, to offer worship to Devi, Sri Rama appealed to Brahmadev, and Brahmadev went in search of Devi, and to his delight, he found Devi sleeping under a vilva leaf as a Kumari. And Brahmadev then did Devi's stuti. Devi woke up and received Sri Rama's worship. You see, this is very interesting. We have 4 Navaratris during the year, but the most famous is the Sharadiya Navaratri and the Chaitra Navaratri. During the Chaitra Navaratri in Bengal, we have Vasanti Durga Puja. During the Vasanti Durga Puja, we do not have the tradition of Bodhana or Nidra Bhanjana. So we don't have to invoke the goddess, but during Sharadiya Navaratri, we have to invoke the goddess in Vilva Vriksha. Because during Chaitra, it is Uttarayana. The gods are already awake, so there is no need to awake the god. So Bodhan means the Shabda, the word Bodhan means Nidra Bhanjana. So this is very interesting that in traditional Durga Pujas in Bengal today, though the Durga Puja is essentially a 3-day ritual, You have Saptami, Mahashtami and Mahanavami. These are the 3 days in the Shukla Paksha Tithi after Mahalaya Amavasya. But in most cases, the Bodhan starts either on Pratipada, that is the first day of the Navaratri after Mahalaya Amavasya, or a couple of days preceding the Mahalaya Amavasya in the waning phase of the moon during the Krishna Paksha on Krishna Navami, which is also called Bodhanavami, so that there is a 14-15 day ritual and it's called Krishna Navamyadi Kalparambha. So this Krishna Navamyadi Kalparambha, you invoke the goddess in the Kalasa and under a Vilva leaf tree, and this invocation goes on, and it is on the Saptami day that you ritually bring this invocation in the Pratima. As far as the Shastras are concerned, there are various types of Kalparambha. So you have Krishna Navamyadi Kalparambha, which happens in the month of Bhadra Krishna Navami, which is also called Bodhanavami. Traditionally, it is believed that it is this in Bodhanavami that Sri Rama did Devi's Bodhana. Then you have Pratipadadi Kalpa in the month of Ashvina Shukla Paksha Pratipada, that is the day after Mahalaya Amavasya. Once you start Bodhana on this day, then every day, like you are invoking Devi, she is the daughter of the household, and every day you gift her in the puja, you offer her new items. On Pratipada, you offer her Kesha Samskara Dravya. On Dvitya, you offer her Pattadora. On Tritya, you offer her Alaktaka, Sindura and Darpana. On Chaturthi, you offer her Madhuparka, Tilaka Drabba and Kajvala. On Panchami, you offer her Chandana, Agaru, Kasturi, Kunkuma, this kind of Angarag Dravya, Bhushanadi. These are what the Shastras tell us. Then you have Shashtyadi Kalpa, which happens on the Shashti Tithi of the Shukla Paksha, Shashti Tithi in Ashvina, Saptamyadi Kalpa, Mahashtamyadi Kalpa, Keval Mahashtami Kalpya, and Mahanavami Kalpa. It is only in Mahasaptamyadi Kalpa that you start worshipping the goddess in Mrinmai Pratima. So there are two Mahatithis, which are Mahashtami and Mahanavami. Saptami is not a Mahatithi. So the main puja is conducted on these 3 days. So the puja starts on Saptami and the puja ends on Navami. On Dasami, which is called Vijaya Dasami, it is the day for Devi's Niranjan or immersion. On the evening of Shashti, the tradition is that on the Mrinmai Devi Pratima, which has been ritually made of clay, there is a traditional process of making it. On the Nava Patrika is an assemblage of 9 different varieties of plants where you invoke Navadurga on Saptami day. So on these two, you do Adivas with the various items as the traditional texts say. And on Shashti Tithi, first you worship Vilva Vriksha as Mahadev. Below it, you imagine that Sri Devi is sleeping and invoke her. You try and awake her through the chanting of sacred hymns. Once she is awake, then with humility you invite her to accept your worship for the next 3 days. So this is how it goes. On the next day in the morning, the tradition is to take the Nava Patrika for ritual bath. Many people take the Nava Patrika for ritual bath to Ganga. In the absence of the river Ganga, the Nava Patrika is taken to other rivers or to a sanctified pond which has been, ritually established. And Navapatrika, as I told you, you have Rambha, you have Kachwa, Haritra, Jayanti, Bilva, Darimba, Ashoka, Mana and Dhanya. 9 plants you invoke Brahmani, you invoke Kalika, Durga, Jayanti, you invoke Kartiki, Shiva, Raktadantika, Shokarahita, Chamunda and Mahalakshmi. So these are the 9 goddesses whom you invoke, and you bring her with the chanting of the mantra Chamunde Chala Chala Chalaya Chalaya Shikram Durge Mama Griham Pravisha. I think the Nivandhakaras in the ancient times, they thought that Sri Devi was Briksha Rupini. Okay, so there is this concept of ecology, ecofeminism. She was certainly Parama Prakriti, Mahamaya. So Devi and Prakriti, they are abhinna. So perhaps this Navapatrika Pujan is a continuity of that tradition. Subsequent to this Sthapana of Navapatrika, you start the Maha Snan of Sri Devi. Now, how this is done? The Pratima is made of clay, so you cannot directly bathe the Pratima, though there are exceptions in 1 or 2 places where they directly bathe the Pratima. Okay, and it is definitely a very interesting ritual, but in most places you place a mirror, a metal mirror, where the Devi's Pratibimba is captured, okay, reflection is captured, and you offer Dantakashta for her brushing, Tandula Churna, Ushnodak, warm water, and all these things are offered, and then with various items, as if you are bathing, you consider Devi, conceive of her as a Vatsalya Sikta Kanya. So with great care you should bathe her, and in this bathing lot of things are taken into account, and you take into account water from various rivers of India, you take into account soil from various places, and all these things. One thing is, very unique, that Durga Puja, as we said, is a Maha Puja, and Durga Puja is that kind of a puja where every section of the society and every dimension of the society has some part to play. Without that, Durga Puja is incomplete. You have the Brahmin priest, you have the blacksmith who performs the sacrifice, you have the drummer who plays the drum. And then, along with the Devi, everybody is worshipped. Sri Durga is worshipped, her Vahana Simha is worshipped, the accompanying deities Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kartikeya, Ganesha is worshipped, their Vahanas are worshipped, and even Mahisasura is worshipped. Then Indradi Devatas are worshipped, all the weapons are worshipped, even in the backdrop, which is called the Chalachitra, all the deities who are painted in the Chalachitra, they are also worshipped. So similarly, on Mahashtami, the worship becomes a little more elaborate, because on Mahashtami, along with Devi, Mahisasura Mardhini, Ashtadasha Bhuja, Yogini Puja, Ugrachanda, Prachanda, Chandokra, Chandanayika, Chanda, Chandavati, Chandarupa, Atichandika, all of them are invoked. They are worshipped. Chatushashti Yogini is worshipped. Navashakti is worshipped. Jayantadi Ekadash Shakti is worshipped. Then, as usual, all the 11 Divyastras are also worshipped. This is done on Mahanavami also. Balidanam is also carried out. In many places today, animal sacrifice is not done anymore, but in place of animal sacrifice, pumpkin and ikshudanda, that is sugarcane, is sacrificed. But there are places where the tradition of animal sacrifice is still carried on. Now let us come back to another tradition of Durga Puja, which is the Kumari Puja. Prajapati Brahma, when she first had Devi's vision, as we just heard about it, she had Devi's vision as Salankara Kumari. At the end of the Maha Puja on Mahanavami, it is a custom, in some places it is a kulachar, to worship Devi. Also it is a Shastrik Vidhan to worship Devi as a Kumari. So, but Kumari Puja is mainly a tantric ritual. So the Shastras prescribe that any Kumari who is of the age from 1 year to 16 years, but there is a rider here, any girl who has reached puberty cannot be worshipped as a Kumari. And the Shastras also prescribe names for Kumaris, like a Kumari who is 1 year old would be called Sandhya, who is 2 years will be called Saraswati, who is in a 3rd year will be called Tridhamurti, 4th year Kalika, 5th year Subhaga, 6th year Uma, 7th year Malini, and like that. And generally, the Shastras also prescribe that the Kumari should be from the Dvija. In Belur, Sri Ramakrishna Math, Swami Vivekananda worshipped Kumari Puja on Mahashtami Tithi, and following that in Belur Math today, Kumari Puja is performed on Mahashtami Tithi. In many places in Bengal, not many places, but in certain places in Bengal, along with Kumari Puja, Shakti Puja or Sadhava Puja, that is the worship of a married lady, is performed. There are two special rituals of Durga Puja also. One is Ardharatra Vihita Puja. So on the 9th of the day where Ashtami Tithi comes, that night, 48 minutes, you have Ardharatra Vihita Puja. This is performed in some families where goddess is worshipped specially. In some families, during Ardharatra Vihita Puja, Shatruvadh is performed. They make Puttalika out of Kshira, and this Puttalika is ritually sacrificed in front of Devi as a notion of Shatruvada. This is a tradition that is connected with ancient royal ritual, royalty. The other thing is the Sandhi Puja, Mahasandhiskan, which is the last one danda, 24 minutes of Mahashtami Tithi, and the first 24 minutes of Mahanavami Tithi. This Sandhikshan, this 48 minutes, is the time when Goddess Durga is worshipped as Goddess Chamunda. So it is believed that it was during this Sandhikshan when Sri Devi took her position in Sri Rama's bowstring and helped Sri Rama to sever Ravana's 10 heads. So for ritual worshippers, this Shandikshan is a very special time during this autumnal worship of the great goddess. And during this Shandikshan, Shri Devi is worshipped with 18 items, 108 Puchara, 108 lamps, and 108 lotuses. So, this is more or less the tradition. So it says, Sharadiya, Raghunandana says, Sharadiya Maha Puja Chatu Karmamai Shubha Tam Tithi Trayam Asadhya Kuryad Bhaktya Vidhanatah. So in these 3 days, Snan, Puja, Validan and Home, this 4 karmas, if you do, then only the Maha Puja becomes fulfilled. Otherwise, if you do not do one of these things, then Maha Puja is not fulfilled. And then obviously you have Homa and Agni. And another thing is a very ancient tradition of Durgotsava is Shabarotsava. Shabarotsava is a very ancient tradition, and in certain ancient pujas, Shabarotsava is still being performed. And on Dashami, Devi is ritually, first Visarjanam is done in water, in the Darpan Prativimba, and then she is carried either to a pond, a tank, temple tank, or to the Ganga, or to a river, or to the village tank, and there she is ritually immersed with Vidihinam, Kriyahinam, Bhaktihinam, Yadarchitam, Sangam Bhavatu Tat Sarva, Prasadam Maheshwari, Matar Yoni Sahasreshu, Yeshu Yeshu Brajamyam, Teshu Tveshu Chata Bhaktir, Rapyastu Sadatri. It's a very beautiful thing. I would like to quote Bankim Chandra, who says, Tumi Vidya, Tumi Dharma, Tumi Riddhi, Tumi Marma, Tvam hi Prana Sharire, Bahute Tumi Ma Shakti, Hridaye Tumi Ma Bhakti, Tomari Pratima Guri Mandire Mandire, Tvam hi Durga Dasha Praharana Dharini. This is from the immortal Vande Mataram from his Anandamat. It is essential for us that we do not lose our cultural roots and our civilizational consciousness. It is a Herculean task before us that we preserve our ancestral traditions and we take it forward. To achieve these ends, in Kolkata, we have taken up a project to document the Durga festival in all its multiple dimensions and make available the original ritual liturgical texts for the benefit of one and all. We require your support to make this project a success. Namaskar.